Aloha, everybody. We know you're there. I see you trickling in, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Our special guest presenter is here, and we'll wait just a couple of minutes while we let some other folks into the room and let the Facebook live stream get started as well. So mahalo for joining us tonight. We'll be right with you. Excellent. That looks fantastic. Let's go ahead and get started. Aloha, it's Tuesday evening, and I'm Kim Ku'ule Burney with Papo'ololokahi, manage the communications, and we're really happy to dig into another set of webinars that we've got, a couple of series that are starting off for this summer to go into the fall. And we want to go ahead and get started. So several new series, several new hosts. You're going to be meeting Napua Casson Fisher, who's been with us for quite a while. You're going to be meeting Lilihua Kauahikoa, who's fairly new with Papo'ololokahi. And we've got a bunch of different mental health and cultural series that we're going to be digging into. But let's start with a couple of housekeeping items this evening. This presentation is being recorded, and it's being live streamed on Facebook. In addition, we have a presentation. Our guest presenter will has some slides to show all of us, but we also will be able to share the slides with you after the presentation. We'll be taking questions and answers in the second half of this hour. Any questions you have about emergency preparedness, getting ready, now's the time to ask our guest. And there will be an evaluation at the close of the presentation. When you log off to the webinar, it's going to open automatically in your tabs. So please complete the evaluation. It helps us know what it is that interests you so that we can bring you better programming in the future. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce to you our special guest, John Mahiʻai Cummings III. He is the Public Information Officer with the City and County of Honolulu Emergency Management Office. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. So Mahiʻai, I've known you for a few years, but I haven't seen you in person in years. And it's not because of the pandemic. I just haven't seen you in a long time. Yeah, so I thought maybe we could find out a little bit about you before we dig into your presentation.
Sure. So, well, with the city, I've been, just so you hear myself talk. I've been with the city now for almost 25 years in the Emergency Management Office. It was originally the Oahu Civil Defense Agency here, and our job primarily is to coordinate the city's response to large-scale natural and man-made human-caused disasters like tsunamis, hurricanes, hazardous materials incidents. My job particularly is to work a lot with the education, public education programs, working with community groups like yourselves, large and small. And also I do a lot of the outreach programs, and I'm responsible for the social media aspect of our department, to be the oldest guy here with social media. and basic communications for our department here are pretty similar to what you're doing right now too. So, but prior to that, I was with the American Red Cross, and for a number of years doing the same thing in Guam and Saipan and American Samoa. And when I'm not doing this, I originally met Kim through our halau, through John Lake a long time ago. So I consider her my sister forever, and happy to be here tonight. And when I'm not doing this work, I spend a lot of time theater backstage doing prop design work, and then when I get home, I have my wife and my 3 cats and my dog.
You
That's
answered
it.
all my questions. I thought I was going to have to tease some of that information out of you, but you pretty much have answered all of the questions. That's really awesome. Have you always lived on Oahu?
Yeah, born and raised here. Started out in Waikiki back when it was a jungle. Moved to Makaha and Ewa Beach. Back to Makaha, and then into town into Pauoa Valley in 1969. Been there ever since.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. All right, Mahiʻai, we didn't really test. I do have your presentation as a backup, but do you want to run your own slideshow?
Yeah. So I'm going to try share screen and see how this goes.
Yeah.
And up there.
There, just in case it doesn't. There we go. All right.
There. You hit play. Sometimes I'm technologically challenged here with these things. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, now we've got your single slide.
Right, so again, Department of Emergency Management, on behalf of the City and County of Honolulu, our Mayor Rick Blangiardi and my department, thank you, Kule, for inviting me here to talk story tonight about hurricane preparedness. It's a very important topic, for all of us, especially living here on an island in the middle of the beautiful Pacific. So the first things I want to touch on is the next slide. Why we have to be prepared for, well, not only hurricanes, but disasters in general, right? We are the most isolated place on the planet. We win, hands down, right? And it's beautiful. We're surrounded by oceans. Our families grow here, live here. We swim all the time. People come to visit. But when we get impacted by a natural disaster like a hurricane or tsunami, this isolation can become a challenge for us. And add that to here in the city of County of Honolulu, we have the largest population in the state. If we look at our residential population, our daily visitor numbers when they're back to the normal levels, we have over 1 million people here on a very small island. And the other kind of sad thing to consider too is that as much as we shouldn't be here in Hawaii, we're highly dependent on goods from outside of the state. And if you look around your office, your home right now, the things in front of you and around you, what you're wearing, probably came from someplace other than Hawaii. So we really need to, look at what we can do to help ourselves be a lot more resilient within our own INA. We really have to do that. Because again, if we get hit by a tsunami or hurricane, we lose our harbors, we lose our airports, we lose our ability to get stuff. And we've forgotten what it is to be resilient here as Hawaiians, right? We used to grow our own food, take care of everything, but now we go to the store, we go to Walmart, and we got to get beyond that. That's a little preaching there, but anyway, moving on. So the other thing, we talk about isolation on an island and within a state, we can also get isolated here very quickly. One of our worst case scenarios is a Category 4 hurricane. It comes right across the wall. We're looking 300,000 people with no place to go. Our roads are closed, our coastlines are shattered. You can't leave your community. And the reality is it could be at least, it could be up to 2 weeks before we can get to you or you can get out. So we have to understand this now and plan for this eventuality. Another challenge we have is evacuation. Again, on an island here, we can't drive away from the threat as our family and friends on the mainland can, right? If you live in the Gulf Coast, Florida, a hurricane is coming, a tropical storm is coming, you can drive inland 100 miles and you're away from the threat. We can't do that here. We just can't do this. So we're forced to ride these events out, so we have to be prepared. The other thing we have to deal with also, when we talk about hurricanes especially, is our refuge area sheltering. Right now, our current list, and I'll have a link up later on to access this, we have 38 sites on Oahu that we can access. But with those 38 sites, which are predominantly schools, we can barely shelter 10% of our population. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. So we don't have enough public buildings that are viable right now. We're trying to add to the list by inspecting, looking at other schools and parts of our facilities. But right now, we don't have enough space for everybody what we need. Right. So we talk about disasters here for the city and county of Honolulu. Our hazard mitigation plan identifies the top 3 disasters that can impact us. Of course, number 1 is our hurricanes, tropical storms. I think we all know that. Number 2 are tsunami events. Number 3 are flood events. So these are the top 3 that cause the most problems. Now, if we look at some more disasters in past history, the top of the list, of course, in physical damage and cost, we're talking about our hurricane events, right? Hurricane Nikki back in 1992, $5.7 billion in today's money. That's a lot of damage, primarily in Kauai, but we did take a lot of damage here in Oahu. Hurricane Eva in 1982, $827 million worth of damage. We had Isel in 2014, primarily in Hawaii County, $162 million. A lot of my friends, when we talk about hurricanes, they're like, oh, we survived Nikki, we survived Eva. Oahu has never been directly impacted by hurricane force winds. We barely had tropical storm force winds here. So our friends and family in Kauai know about this. We've never experienced it. But when we look at lives lost, right? Tsunami events here, that's the killer for us right now. Since 1946, 220 plus people have died in the state of Hawaii due to tsunami events. So that's the natural disaster killer for us. It really is. But back to talking about hurricanes. So let's talk a little bit about hurricane preparedness. Now, what is a hurricane? What is a tropical storm? Hurricanes and tropical storms are part of a system called tropical cyclones. That for us can impact us primarily from June through November. Historically, the bad times of the year for us in the past have been September, October, November. That's when we've had the most storm systems coming through our islands here, right? The 3 hazards with a hurricane, of course, are the first one is the high winds. Then we have the storm surge. And the last one is the heavy flooding and rains, right? Now, each of these by themselves can cause a lot of problems, but a hurricane brings them all at one time, And also, when we talk about the hazards, a lot of folks think that, the worst thing is the winds. That's where the killer is. It's not. If you look at the data across the United States, the majority of people who die from hurricanes and tropical storms are killed by storm surge. And that's a surge from the waves that are pushed forward in advance of the tropical system. You don't get out the shoreline, you evacuate out of the way at a time, and you drown. So that really is the killer portion of the hurricane and storm surge. So with tropical storms and hurricanes, we have to be aware of some messaging here. Of course, the first one is a tropical cyclone watch. What that means is that high winds and storm surge are possible within our area within 48 hours or 2 days, right? Generally, when we go into a watch period, for you as a resident, for my family, that's when you want to look at storing extra water, bringing out your supplies, checking your batteries, canceling the trips on the weekend, getting the family together because we could get a hurricane warning, right? Of course, a hurricane warning means that we're going to have high winds and storm surge within a day and a half. Generally, when we get to the warning period, that's when we start our coastal evacuations. At the watch phase, we'll issue, of course, information to include what shelters are available and open and where they're located. But when we get to the warning phase here, by this time, you should be ready to hunker down. And unfortunately, a lot of folks, this is when they choose to go out and get gasoline, go get money, go to Walmart. This part's too late. Warning phase. Now, one word you hear a lot during hurricane season, we have active season, of course, is the word Hawaiian waters. What does that mean? Basically, that means that we now have a system that's crossed the 140-degree west longitude line or developed in that line. It is now in our area. It's now in our area. So what that means is when this happens, you need to really start paying close attention to what the system is doing and where it's going, right? Because a fast-moving storm system crossing the 140 mark can be over Oahu within 5 to 7 days or less, right? So again, once it crosses 140, Hawaiian waters, our area, it will also now be tracked by the Central Hurricane Center here on Oahu. So that's where we're getting our information directly. A couple of fun facts. Any tropical storms or hurricanes that form within our coastal water, our Hawaiian waters, are given Polynesian names. So Iniki, Uene, etc. Right? Any tropical storms or hurricanes that make landfall anywhere within the United States, those names are archived and never used again. So we'll never see another Hurricane Niki. We'll never see another Hurricane Eva. Okay, so this year so far, we've been very lucky that our hurricane center forecast this past May is holding true. It's been pretty quiet right now. We've had some storm systems develop off the coast of California, have trucked this way, but have dissipated, which is good. So right now, again, 80% chance of a near to below normal season, which for me is, I'm happy with that, right? But of course, we need to treat every hurricane season like it could be the one, right? So when nothing is happening, we need to be planning with our families for the eventuality of being impacted by hurricane and tropical storm. Now, another issue we have to face, of course, when we talk about hurricanes, is the majority of our homes here on Oahu, and actually throughout the state, were built before any type of hurricane codes or design bills were in the system, right? You know, basically, if you have an older home built before 1985, 86, or 1990, unless you've done something to harden it, we'll get to that in a second, there's nothing built in the home to withstand these winds, right? So, and that's a lot of our homes here, which means, again, the majority of our homes would not withstand a Category storm. And a good example is my dad's house on Kapalama Heights, built in 1941. I just know it's not gonna last, right? The good news is there are some things that you can do to mitigate an older home, right? To strengthen the home. This guide by the UHC grant, the Homeowner's Handbook to Prepare for Natural Hazards, has a lot of outstanding information in it. And it's a free download. You can either download it or view it online. In fact, 2 years ago, when I decided to upgrade our home to be more resistant to hurricanes, I used the information in here to decide what I wanted to do with my windows. And it was an excellent guide. It's updated every year. Again, it's free. The link is there. The link will be in the PDF that Kule will be providing later on. But again, if you have the opportunity, it has information for your home and also other hazards. It's a one-stop shopping guide right here. So before a hurricane forms, what you really need to do, of course, is look at the risks that could impact you and your family. You live in a flood zone, are you in an older home on a ridge line? When was your home built? Have you done any retrofitting work to it? Now, all these factors can play into how your disaster plan will go for you and your family, right? So once you understand the hazards specific to hurricanes, you can look at developing a family plan, building your disaster supply kit, considering what you can do to harden your home, check your insurance. We'll talk about insurance in a little bit, and also decide whether you can stay in place, shelter in your home, or if you have to evacuate somewhere else. So let's talk about that right now. So again, a key step in hurricane preparedness is knowing well in advance if you or your family can shelter in place or if you have to evacuate your home. So first off, again, as I mentioned, my dad's house, you know, if it's an older single wall home built before 1995 that has not been retrofitted to withstand hurricane force winds, you should plan on evacuating that home if we're going to be impacted by a hurricane or a tropical storm directly, right? And that's really true. And again, that's the majority of our homes here on Oahu right now. So now other options you have to look at too. You may have to evacuate, of course, if you're totally evacuated. That's kind of a given, right? Now, if you are in this coastal area in a newer home, you might have to evacuate through storm surge. Now, again, the storm surge, that's waves pushed in advance of a hurricane or tropical storm. It's going to impact the area where the storm is coming short primarily. It won't impact the whole island like the tsunami, right? So you may have to, if you're in the shoreline, evacuate due to storm surge. Now, if you live in an older home on the exposed ridgeline, or homes on exposed ridgelines take a lot of wind loading. And again, if you live in a flood zone or an area prone to flooding or near a dam or downhill of a dam, you may have to plan to evacuate. So now, if you live in a newer home built after 1994 or more so after 2006, those homes by design here in Oahu have been designed to withstand up to a Category 1 hurricane force winds. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good, right? Now, if you've added to that some type of window protection, whether it be plywood, window coverings, or some other things that are listed within the homeowner's handbook, right? If you've done that, you're not in a shoreline area, you should think about considering sheltering in place, what we call a safe area or sheltering in place room. Now, basically what that means is within your home, right? Identifying a room that has no exterior walls, no exterior windows, So that could be like your bathroom or your bedroom, enclosed hallway. If you live in an apartment building, a lot of times the enclosed hallways between apartments are good options if they're closed up. And basically that's where you're going to shelter in place with your family, where you'll take your supplies and your family will ride out the storm. The reality is that this is a good option. This is really the best option if you can do it. Right? If you have to go to one of our hurricane refuge areas, you have to take all of your supplies with you. And that can be a lot, especially if you have a big family. So if you can shelter in place at home or at the home of a friend or family member who's in your home, that's a good option. So again, evacuation best option, shelter in place at home if at all possible. Again, that's the best option. If you do not have an option other than that, we do have our refuge area shelters. They're available here at this link, and this will be in the PDF you'll have afterwards. They are a last resort, but really, if you can shelter in place at home or with friends and family, that's the best option because you don't have to take supplies with you at home. And also, while we're still in our pandemic right now, which hopefully we'll be out of this, by the end of the year, right? If you have to evacuate to a shelter or someone else's home, remember to also add to your supplies some additional COVID supplies, so additional masks, hand sanitizers, and things like that. Right? We have to keep doing this now. So we have a storm approaching our area here. Some things you can consider doing, of course, at your home are cleaning the gutters and downspouts because we want the water to get off of that roof as quickly as possible. If you have any loose outside of the home, like lawn furniture, decorated pieces, the surfboard, anything that can go flying in high wind, bring it inside or secure it so there's less impacts against your home or your neighbor's home, right? If as much as possible you can, board up your windows, either with plywood or something else, right? Caveat here is tape does not work. A lot of people still do tape. Tape will not stop a coconut coming through the window at 90 miles an hour, right? You have to put some kind of barrier on the outside. So basic is plywood at a minimum, right? Secure and brace exterior doors. If you're told to turn off your utilities, do so. Make sure you turn up your thermostat in your refrigerator and your freezers as high as possible because you like it to be cold. Knowing that the hurricane or tropical storm, we're going to lose our electricity for a number of days, right? Monitor local radio and TV stations for emergency information. And again, either prepare to evacuate or shelter in place based on your family plan. Now, during the storm, stay indoors, away from windows, away from blast doors. Hunker down if you're in your shelter in place. Hunker down if you're in a refuge shelter, right? Close all your doors, lock everything up. Beware of the eye of the hurricane. The winds can drop. I was in Guam back in '94. We had a super typhoon come through, and when the hurricane, that typhoon passed over the island, the winds dropped and it was quiet. I took a look outside of our office, which is our bunker in downtown Agana. You can see blue sky, but all around it, you can see the eye wall. Within a couple of minutes, that storm came back in again. It was game on again. So again, a lot of people get lulled into complacency. They think the storm is over. It's the eye. So be careful of that. And again, as much as possible, monitor radio TV stations if they're still operating for information. Lastly, after the storm, again, AM radio, FM radio is how we're going to be talking to you after a hurricane, right? It's not going to be our cell phones. It's not going to be TV sets. It's not going to be cable. So if you have a basic AM, FM radio, that's your key to getting information after the storm passes, right? Be aware of hazards. We're going to have down power lines. We're going to have broken gas lines. We're going to have flooded roads. There's going to be a lot of hazards. In fact, a lot of fatalities from a hurricane outside the storm surge are from folks who go out afterwards and just run into problems. They run into flooded areas. They get electrocuted. So you got to be really careful after a hurricane passes. With your own home, if you can, assess your damage, taking pictures, documenting your losses. If you're at a shelter, once it's safe to return, be careful when you're driving back home. And again, same thing, try and document your damages. If your home is unsafe, the shelters will still be open for you to return to. So let's talk about preparedness now. So preparedness is a three-step system which has not changed in a bazillion years, really. Its basics are make a plan, build a kit, and stay informed. That's really as simple as you can get, right? So first off is making a plan, and again, knowing what hazards can affect you for a hurricane, tsunami, or whatever other disaster, right? You want to know how you're going to keep in touch with your family. Yeah, have off-island contact. We'll talk about that in a second. It's really important. Do you know how you're going to reunite with your family? If you have kupuna living with you, like my dad, he lives by himself. My plan is we evacuate him from his home with his disabled dog, comes to our house, then I got to go to work. So I have to plan for the eventuality of me leaving and my wife and my dad are pretty much on their own, right? So I have to plan for that. Right? Special needs, again, pets, if you have pets, you have to plan for them too. Special dietary needs for anyone in your family. And also, lastly, of course, another plug, we'll talk about insurance in a minute, is making sure you have proper insurance. The bottom line is that you gotta make sure that you and your family are prepared at home because you might be separated. But for a lot of us in the city who are in smaller positions, we have to go to work when the blue sky goes gray, right? So I need to know that my family is safe and prepared at home so I can go and do my job, right? And there's a lot of other people on this island, it could be even you who are here right now, who have the same situation. You have to leave your families when it gets bad, right? So if your family is prepared at home, they'll better be able, they'll be better secure in your absence. And of course, if you have to be at work, to be able to do your job better, knowing that they're safe and have some supplies, right? And that's the bottom line. I mentioned this again, knowing what hazards can affect you for hurricanes or other events. Can you stay at home? Will you have to relocate? Will you have to evacuate? What, all these are factors that come into play with other hazards that can affect you, right? Quick note on tsunami events. We had a tsunami watch last week. Thankfully, it went away. But, tsunamis can happen very quickly. If we get a bad earthquake in the Aleutian Islands, we can get a tsunami wave here in under 4 hours. And that's the reality. We have 2 evacuation zones on Oahu right now. They're listed on this map here. It's online. The nice thing with this map is that you can go there right now, part of your family planning, enter your address or any address on Oahu, and we'll show you where that address is related to the evacuation zones. It's a really good map for that. Again, another plug for our hurricane refuge area locations. They're on this map here. When you go to the map, it's going to show you all of the shelters that could be used available, right? The thing to know is what shelters are closest to where you live, or you spend a lot of time. But don't automatically relocate there for a hurricane tropical storm. Depending on the size and direction of the system, if it's going to pass south and north of us, we're not going to open all the shelters. We're going to open those shelters on that side down, right? If we're going to get a direct hit, we're going to open them all. And again, generally by the time we get to the watch phase at 48 hours or 2 days out, we'll start releasing a list of what shelters are available, what times they're going to open, right? And also this list, when you go back up to it during the event, the shelters that are available will turn green, showing that they're open. So again, knowing where your hurricane refuge area shelters are is a really good part of your family plan. Another plug for the book, again, outstanding guide, free, get this one. Insurance. Okay, this is a good guide. The Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs state developed this guide after the 2018 floods. I think if you folks remember that in April of 2018, we had a large flood down in East Honolulu all the way to Kailua side and on Kauai also, right? So what happened after that event, they found out that a lot of folks either didn't have insurance, weren't aware of what the insurance covered, or had some, they weren't really sure, right? So first thing, of course, is you get this guide. It's excellent. For those of you who have homeowners insurance, make sure you know what your policy covers and what it doesn't. Even if you have a hurricane coverage, make sure you're covered for flood, because sometimes it does, it doesn't. All policies are different. The other thing that happened was there were a lot of folks who rented, who thought that the landlord would cover their losses. The landlord is going to cover losses to his home only or the rental itself, not your personal property. Renter's insurance is not expensive at all. If you can afford it, get it. Again, make sure you know what your insurance policy covers. This is a good guide. Get this guide. Number 2 thing is having a kit of supplies. And we're talking about 14 days. Because again, the reality is a hurricane event that impacts the island, it could be a very long time before either assistance can reach you or you can get out to get to assistance, right? We could be cut off for 14 days depending where you are on the island, right? So basic supplies, food, water, non-perishable foods you don't have to cook to eat. So, for me, that's corned beef, Vienna sausage, sardines, and that type of thing, right? We have a number of lists that have some basic things. Everybody's situation in life is different. Your diet's different. But again, look at what you would need to do for you and your family have to be able to get through 2 weeks, without any type of assistance from the outside. And kind of think of it like the camping trip you hope you never have to take, right? For 2 weeks, that's the key. It's a lot to ask, but if you take it in little bites and plan ahead, it's something we can all reach and get to. Because again, remember, we could be cut off, our homes, we can't leave, our businesses are going to be boarded up, you might be in a shelter. And of course, whenever we get into a hurricane or tropical storm, the shelves are empty at the store. Now, these are just some samples of what a kit will look like. You can buy ready-made kits. You see these every hurricane season. They pop up at the big box stores, at the hardware stores. They're good, quick kits to have, but in general, you really need to design a kit for your family needs. So while nothing is happening, now is a good time to look at what you need for your kit. What you need, right? What your needs are, your medical needs, etc. The number 3 thing, of course, is having the ability to receive emergency information. And we highly recommend having some type of redundancy in your ability to do that. Now, right now, almost everybody has a smartphone. We all have our cell phones, our iPhones, etc. Right? So within those phones is built in the wireless emergency alert system. So if you are in an area that's impacted by a warning level event, like a flash flood warning, hurricane warning, etc., when that warning is issued, your phone is going to alert. It's going to come screaming at you. It's going to flash a message. So that's your first level, right? We have our outdoor siren warning systems for folks outdoors if they have an emergency. We also broadcast information over TV and radio over the emergency alert system. We also have a lot of apps you can do. You can use to access other emergency information, right? So you want to have multiple levels of doing this. But of course, the most important one right here is the basic AM/FM radio. That's, got to have one of these. Whenever I'm at the swap meet or if I'm at Goodwill, Salvation Army, if I see a radio, I'll pick it up, I'll tune it up, throw batteries in it, give it to a friend. But a simple little radio here is going to make a big difference, right? So multiple methods of receiving information. Then again, a plug. Whenever we have an emergency like a hurricane or something, make sure you monitor local TV. We have some really good TV stations here, have lots of up-to-date information. We also have radio stations that broadcast in multiple languages here on Oahu and in the state. And in general, for during an emergency, KSSK AM and FM really is one of your best bets to tune to, because that radio station is in a hardened facility, and the radio station and the broadcast station tower are generator powered. So they're going to keep broadcasting when there's no electricity on the island. So big plug, KSSK AM and FM. So contact and communications, off-island contact. This is one of my favorite tips, one of the most simplest things you can do. So what this is that your friends and your family carry the phone number of somebody outside of the state. For myself, my family, and several of my friends, it's my Auntie Bernie who lives in San Bernardino. We all have her number. So if we're separated due to a disaster, a hurricane, or like an earthquake or something, right? If I can't call home, if I can't get home, if I pick up the phone and it's not working, etc., as soon as I can get to working line, either a cell phone line or a telephone line, I'm going to call my Auntie Bernie. I'm going to check in. I'm going to say, hey, I'm at my office, I'm downtown, I'm okay. My wife will call in if she can, my friends will call in if they can. And I'll know, or we'll all know within a few days, hopefully where everybody is, or if they're not calling in, something's wrong, right? I got to tell you this right now. After 30 years of doing this, the worst that can happen after disaster is not knowing where your family is. I've seen this too many times. It's the worst feeling in the world, and a simple little thing like an off-island contact. You either call or text. And that's another thing to know. Smartphones now, texting is a good skill to have, because a lot of times a text message will push through on a crowded system before a voice message will get through. And also, if you enter text into your phone, if it can't get to a cell tower, it'll sit there and it'll wait and stand by. As soon as it gets to an active system, it's going to ping and it's going to send it out. So texting is a good skill to have for everyone in your family. Know how to do that. As I mentioned, we have a lot of apps we can access for emergency information. One of our city apps is right here. It's called hnl.info. It is a free app. You can download it on the App Store or Google Play. You can sign up online. And basically what you will do is you'll get emergency and routine information from the city and county of Honolulu For our department, we issue a lot of our weather alerts and messages on here. Police department is up on this. Ocean safety, our lifeguard is up on this. Our fire department will be up in here too pretty soon. Again, it's a free app. You can get an email, you can get a push alert to your phone, and if it's a warning level event, you'll get a text message. So hnl.info. Now, to assist you in your preparedness and planning, there are a lot of sites available for you. Of course, on our list is our website here for the city and county at honolulu.gov/DEM. Then we have our state counterparts at Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. Lots of good information there. And while we are still in our pandemic, if you have any questions or information on pandemic, COVID-19 for the city and county of Honolulu, go to oneoahu.org. Oneoahu.org stood up last year when we were in the early phases of the pandemic response, and it really has become the best source for Oahu and for city and county of Honolulu information on all things pandemic. It's outstanding. They update their FAQs all the time, and it is just really the best source for our island and our residents here.
We manage a COVID response team, a network of more than 60 offices and agencies, and we have the One Oahu as a resource.
Yeah, I know. To me, it's the best.
So mahalo for that.
Yeah, it's just really good. I give that team kudos all the time because they're a small group, but they're just on it. They're just on it. Okay, so having said that, I know that's a lot to absorb in about a half an hour. I'll pop over to some questions. I'll stop sharing my screen for now. Okay, and I can go over to the chat or however you want to do it, Lilihua. I think they're muted.
Yeah, no, I am muted. And I was on the wrong screen. But thank you so much for that. So many of the photos and your tips brought back so many memories. Couple memories of Hurricane Eva, but of course we all have Hurricane Iniki stories, right? And my brother was caught in the eye of Hurricane Iniki while he was living on Kauai with some of his friends, thinking that it had passed, but actually it was coming back. It turned around and came back, if you remember that. So there are a lot of stories there. And in 1992, I was a young research associate, and one of the first jobs I had it happened on September 11th. On October 3rd, I flew to Kauai and we did some retrospective studies on the injuries. We were tasked with looking at what injuries. So not so much disease. And the number one injury was stepping on nails, right? Nails. Right foot puncture, left foot puncture, right? So I always tell people, make sure you have heavy shoes or heavy boots handy, right? That part of your kit. And of course, there were a lot of the others, a couple of rare ones, like, young people fell off the roof and landed on a reef, those kinds of things. But the puncture was the number one injury, across the board. Yeah.
And again, the fall injuries also too, we see this a lot. People are going to put the roof down, trying to cover the roof up. They're using unstable ladder practices and things. They're not asking for help, but then that really, again, after the hurricane, people let their guard down, and then things happen. We had a fatality on Iniki after that. I think it was a traffic-related incident. I believe they hit a power line wasn't charged, but I think it launched the car up and person died. So again, got to be really careful after a hurricane. You really have to be.
You got to be really careful. Right. And, the research job was my day job. My weekend job was with KGU, and that's an AM station. And it carried to Kauai. So we were able to, from Oahu, provide information, and Kauai people would call in or, get a message to us. We could then flip it back around and say, John is in Kapa'a, and kind of provide that information. So that was, that was really useful. I remember being in the middle of all that and how stimulating and exciting and traumatic it was all at the same time.
The thing though, that Hawaii really came together. I flew in the morning after with a Red Cross group out of Barbers Point Naval Air Station, and was there for about 4 weeks. But I mean, as bad as it was, people pulled together, right? And I think this it's a family, it's aloha spirit, and it wasn't the best situation, but people made the best they could, and they helped each other out. And that's reality. You know, after disaster strikes, you know, it's going to be our communities helping each other before the first responders can even get in there. We have the time for this sound. That's the key to getting through these things. And again, living on an island, whatever we can do to help each other out is going to go a long way post-event.
Right. And especially eating together, right? Because the food is going bad anyway. Right. So they throw it on the barbecue or make a meal and start sharing the food right away, because that's going to be the first to go. So I just want to let folks know that whether you're on Facebook, we're monitoring the Facebook feed. And okay, I see a question that's coming in that we will take your questions. I mean, I've got some things to chat to Mahiʻai about too, but Angela, what about the big wind turbines up here in Kahuku? What speed wind can they withstand? And at what point might the blades fall off? That's a good question. I can't answer
Directly, because it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I do know that most of the large turbines like that, at a certain point, when the winds get to a certain speed, they flatten the blade out. I think it's called feathering a prop. The same thing to an airplane, and it just lets the wind blow by, right? But that is a question. Outside of that, I'm not sure at all. I'd have to check with some.
It is a good question. I think the last time or last summer we had a hurricane watch, perhaps, and the people behind me, the people behind in my neighborhood were rebuilding their house. They're adding a second story on, and all of the shingles, you know, all of the slate tiles were on top of the roof, and they didn't move them. And of course, I mean, it would have been up to the workers, the builders to do so. But I kept my eye on that roof though.
Yeah, no, that stuff can go flying. In fact, like on Kauai, if I remember correctly, you can't use that clay or that tile roofing anymore because of that hazard of it becoming a flying missile and hurting somebody or causing more damage.
Right. So we're still taking questions. For the listeners, we have this emergency preparedness series, and for the last 3 Saturdays in August, we actually have workshops. We have skills building. So one is how to prepare a family kit, and you talked about that in your presentation. Another one is we have Kaiulani Odom, who's going to talk about how to eat aipono during an emergency situation, right? So something that I think everybody will like. But part of this project too is that we will be making kits together. So we're going to, I don't know exactly how many, and my colleague Napua will fill me in soon, I'm sure, but we will make available the supplies so that people can get together and make those emergency kits. Yeah, so that's part of this whole project too. So stay tuned. The rest of those presentations are all going to be on Saturdays, and we'll have them across our social media. So we have another question here. How many meters of storm surge might we expect from a category, from each category, 1 through 5 at Turtle Bay? Angela lives out at Kuilima.
So there are, based on the categories, there are anticipated levels of storm surge, right? Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I do know Hurricane Nikki in 1990, that was a category 4 hurricane. Storm surge in that one was about 18 feet. Now, what that means is if you're standing at the shoreline where the waves are normally tickling your feet, that's 18 feet of water above that, and then the waves on top of that, right? So that's a lot of water that's going to go inland. In fact, I always use Poipu as an example, and I had a picture in there that I took when I was there on Iniki. Parts of Poipu, the hurricane debris and storm surge damage went in a quarter mile. Everything in the shoreline was wiped. It was just, it was done, right? Because that's where the storm came ashore. Poipu, Koloa, all the way down to the Kikaha area, right? And it got hammered there. So it just depends. Now, we do have a storm surge map that is based on a current tropical storm or hurricane event that may impact us at the time, right? So what happens is we use data that comes in from the National Weather Service, wind speed data, ocean tides, and all this is thrown to this system that can give a real-time map as the storm gets closer. The key though is that it has to be getting pretty close for us to model directly. But at least we'll have a pretty good idea. We'll know that, hey, the leeward coast is going to get hit this high. It's going to extend down to Eva and the Honolulu. But other areas like Waimanalo, not so much storm surge, just a wind hazard, right? So that is something that will be coming online when we have an event coming in. And I think we did have a map up for Douglas last year, so it's in the system right now. And that was put together with our city GIS information folks working with our National Weather Service folks to make a map for us here, and it's really good. It's good. It's a good guide, and that'll be up on our website, and we'll broadcast it out too.
Oh, great resource. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I'm hearing Angela's concerns because of the way that Kuilima is shaped. You know, it just kind of juts out there, you know, where we kind of change from the easterly side to the northerly side. It's right there at Kuilima. So
the other thing to consider out there too is that shoreline could get really isolated out there. And if you look at our refuge area map, there's once you get past Ava, and there are no shelters. There are no shelters out there because we don't have any facilities out there that can do it. We have our friends at and families at BYU who make their facilities available, but it's not always guaranteed after a hurricane. Right? So.
Right, good point. And that is one of the other comments that we got, that we really need more shelters.
Right.
How dirty can the water? How dirty can the water, the life straws they are selling at Costco clean? Do you know what this is? What is a life straw?
Yeah.
What's
Actually,
a life straw?
I have one in my bag, but it's in my car right now. And a life, I love these things. It's basically a plastic tube is about that big, and it uses a ceramic filter element to take out, I mean, very, very small microbes, all the way down to like, cysts and things that can make you sick. The key the key with any type of water filtration system you use is you have to use the cleanest water possible. I mean, granted, really, you could put this thing in a gutter and drink the water, right? But if it's dirty, it's going to plug the system up way fast. So if you're going to use a filter like that, you've got to pre-filter and clean water. I mean, if you're using tap water, easy. But if you have to pull from your stream, which is part of my plan, follow a stream. If I can get water, it's where it's coming from, right? I'm going to take the water out of the stream. I'm going to bring it back home. I'm going to run it through some filters, even a coffee filter, get all the sediment out, then run it through the filter itself. So you extend the filter. But life straws, those things are great. I keep one in my car, keep one in my bag, and I have several at home, along with a larger filter system too.
Right. So for my information, how much are life straws if they're selling at Costco?
I think last time I think like a 3-pack for under $40. And if you don't use them, they're good. And if you do use them, there's a system in place how you can clean it out and back flush it. But again, the key with any type of filter is using the cleanest water possible. Got it.
I think, Angela, you got that too. All right. So given that there's such a tenuous road from Kahalu'u to Haleiwa, can we expect to be on our own for a month after Category 3 or higher?
I don't think it'd be a month, but it could be at least a week or more. I mean, I use Unique as the example. There are folks on Kauai that didn't see assistance for almost a week or a little after. I mean, the North Shore side got cut off like it did several times with just flooding, right? There's that, so after a hurricane or tropical storm clears, what happens within the city is we go into debris management, right? So the priorities first off are clearing the coastal roads, then working inland, right? And also clearing accesses to our hospitals and things like that, right? And then going into the communities after that. Now, if you're in like metropolitan Honolulu, Pearl City, it's not as bad, but the farther away you get from the center of Oahu, the longer it's going to take, because it's just, it takes a while to mobilize going out, to those areas, right? So if you live in an area that could get cut off, if you know this, if you have your son or your daughter or your brother has a brand new house that lives in town, say, hey, can we shelter with you? Because that's the best bet. Yeah. And if they say, yeah, plan for it. If you have to, lock up your home, bring your supplies, and go to your friend's house. But good question to ask right now, and then plan for that. Right.
And I think about Kauai, where all of the poles were down, so all the roads were covered, and it took longer than expected to clear the poles off the road, make sure that they weren't live. wires weren't live. And I remember when the ferries started to go there after Hurricane Ian, there were a couple of, well, there was one musician in particular, I probably shouldn't say his name, but his son lived on Kauai, and he and a friend put their motorcycles on the ferry, and that's how they navigated the roads of Kauai, so that he could get to his family and check on his family to make sure that everybody was okay. So that was one of the smartest things for sure.
Yeah, you gotta be creative.
Yeah, you got to be creative. Yeah, for sure. So what we haven't had a tsunami. You kind of briefly
Right.
for tsunami. I mean, 1946 was on the list, and then 1960.
Yeah.
We deaths in both of those. What's the best way to prepare for a tsunami? Just go Malka. I know when there is a watch, everybody's on the pulley, right? All the pulley is lined up with cars.
The important thing with the tsunami, really, of course, is first off is going if you live in an evacuation zone, and the maps are there for that, right? If you're in an evacuation zone, especially the red pink zone, which is where we're probably going to get evacuation from sometime soon, you got to plan to evacuate. If you're not in an evacuation zone, stay put. Every time we go to a warning and evacuation, we over evacuate, and it's mostly because folks wait too long. They're not sure if they're in the evacuation zone. I think it was at the 2010 Chilean event. We had folks in Pro City evacuating. We're not going to get away from Pro City. So look at the maps now. See where you live. If you're in the zone, plan to evacuate. If you're out of the zone, stay put and make your home available if you can to friends and family that may have to evacuate the shoreline. Because right now, we just want you out of the zone. We want you into a safe area, whether it's a parking lot, it's a shopping mall, it's a park, someplace. We just want you out of the zone, someplace safe. So again, if you're not in the zone, if you take care of your friends and family who are in the zone, that's going to be a big help. But know the masters, and then of course, knowing what the watch and warning means. Real simple. Tsunami watch means something may be coming. It's being analyzed. Tsunami warning means we got a wave coming. Get off the shoreline.
Yeah, and then but we know that real quickly. 6 hours, 8 hours later, we know way before that. And I think you mentioned that within 4 hours, we know whether something's heading our way. One question from Angela. We've got a fan out there. What provisions have been made to handle tourists during and after a Category 3 or higher?
Well, actually, that's a good question. Hurricane Nikki, one of the biggest problems Kauai had in Nikki was sheltering. And primarily because they had a lot of visitors who were stuck there, right? So once the visitors were being flown off the island, that was by commercial and military flights, we were able to close a lot of the shelters down and just concentrate on taking care of our residents. The state of Hawaii, Hawaii Emergency Management Agency works very closely with the Visitors Bureau. They do have a plan in place to get visitors out of here as quickly as possible, because it's just going to exacerbate the system. We have extra folks here, right? So it's going to be to bus them to the airport, get them on the planes, and get on whatever flight we can. We know we're not going to get everybody off, but the process is to get as many as possible off in advance of any type of large hurricane or tropical storm system coming through. But there is a plan for that.
Right, great, thank you. So let's just pause for a moment. I am going to let those that are watching know what webinars Papaʻololokahi is bringing is coming up in the near future. And by near future, I pretty much mean in the next week or so. So tomorrow, I hope you can see the screen. Tomorrow we have 4 interns that Tertia Koo has been working with, and they're going to be presenting their findings on the research done on the 2020 census, looking at Native Hawaiian populations across the United States in all states. Starting on Thursday, August 5th, we're starting a series called the Ka'au series, and that will be led by Taupuri Tangaro. And this one's going to be really interesting. So it's going to be the next 3 Thursdays from 11 to 12:30 starting this week. And excuse me, then in September, we're going to have a talk story about it led by Napua and Lilihua with us here at Papaʻololokahi. Also on Thursday evening, our mental health and the Mauna, also brought to you by the Department of Health and ADAD. the same folks that are sponsoring this presentation, the Emergency Preparedness Series. That's the Department of Health and ADAD in partnership with Papaʻololokahi, if I didn't mention that earlier. And Dr. Aukahi Austin Seabury is a clinical psychologist and the executive director of Iolalahui. She's going to be talking about mental health and the Mauna. This is also in partnership with La Ho'iho'i'ea. And then on Friday, back to our NHPI COVID-19 response team, the 3R team, two professors from the North Shore, Dr. Keone Kawe and Dr. Isaiah Walker. One is a scientist, a bench scientist, one is a historian, and they're going to talk about why trust science? Why trust history? You know, who to believe, who should you trust, and what information should you trust? So I think that is going to be very interesting. Now let's go back, and are there any final thoughts? Mahiʻai, my Lua brother, my Pa brother, are you any final thoughts that you want to share with folks tonight?
I think the biggest thing for me is that the whole resiliency issue, we've gotten so far away from being able to grow our foods and take care of our families traditionally. You know, it's just so easy to go down to Walmart and buy stuff, which is not a good model. Now, it's the model that I got to get away from too, right? I'm looking at trying to just a little farming around my house, but we, you know, where you folks are right now in Papaola, whatever you can do to, you know, get people more resilient. You know, we just have to do these things. It's, you know, it's not a matter of if, it's when we're going to get hit again, right? And you know, we can prepare in the modern sense, having the fork to be with the supplies, the canned goods and things, but we got to get back to our traditional thought processes of being able to take care of our own needs for our families in a more natural way, and not relying on the boat and the airplane and stuff coming in containers. It's just, we got to get away from that. We just do, because you know, if we can get back to where we were before, it's going to be a lot better for us to survive the next major event, which is going to happen again. When you look at the weather system, we're getting all these changes. And now my dad, 90 years old, he's telling me he's seeing weather he's never seen before. 90 years old. So it's happening within his lifetime. Wasn't gonna be like with my children's lifetime, right? We've got to plan now, right, more resilient. That's the bottom line. Like
our kupuna were, yeah, right? We've got to go back and not just values, but the real practices. And it's not, you know, I mean, we're going to continue to live in our, you know, in our houses and in our homes and drive our cars, but how can we go back to the practices where barter and trade and, you know, more greater connection to the aina and less connection to the big box stores, which, you know, which is exactly what you've talked about. And Papaʻololokahi, you know, we work on that all the time. All the time. There's so many strategies to keep our lahui thriving and well, and there's policy and there's services and there's information and outreach, and you know, there's just a lot of ways to work on this. And really grateful to you for sharing this. I don't know why I never called on you earlier, but you know, we might call on you again, because you know, every year we have this season, right? We have this hurricane season. And so mahalo nui to John Mahiʻai Cummings III from the City and County of Honolulu Emergency Management Department. We're really grateful that you decided to share some of your evening with us. Aloha nui to you, to your family, to your 90-year-old father. And I look forward to talking with you again in the future. Mahalo nui.
So standing. Thank you so much. Aloha, and have a good evening.
Aloha nui.